All right, so today we have Kevin Andrew in nomination for the Best Microfilm category for the film Things She Wants. Congratulations, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today with us. So we have
Pleasure.
questions for you. What made you go into filmmaking at first?
At first, I started making short films with cinematographer and editor Nicole Cohenan and interpretive dancers Ruth Dutwright and Nikki Carr, with an interest in adapting poems written by people who had some connection with a poetry reading series called Poetry London in my hometown. And so we adapted 4 poems, and year by year, I would apply for more funding to adapt more. And eventually, those adaptations became more dramatic.
Okay, so when did you start and which year did you start all this?
I think that the first ones we shot were in 2017, released in 2018. And then we would shoot 2 or 3 per year for each subsequent year until 2022. And then they were all released together in 2023, last fall.
Okay, so it's not the first time that you adapt poetry into a video, right?
Things She Wants was perhaps our 8th adaptation.
Okay, nice. It was super well done. Congratulations for that. Super touching. And how would you make that film better if you could? Like, for example, if you had more budget, or is it something that you would do?
Um, with Things She Wants, I don't know that I would think about ways to improve it. I think that I think it stands, and I'm content to move on.
Yeah, I agree. It stands a lot. So congrats again. And why did you choose that subject? Did you have a reason for choosing that particular subject?
Well, the poem written by Paula Ferrante. For those who haven't seen the film or are unfamiliar with the text, kind of explodes domesticity, interrogates the institution of marriage, the way in which women, say generally speaking, are kind of socialized to um, marry and to kind of give up rights as a result of that process, historically and in the modern day. And so those themes are all resonant with things that I find it to be important to express. But I think the foremost standard that was guiding the text that I chose to adapt was a kind of lyric excellence. I think that poem, sort of per square inch, is one of the most dynamic and intelligent and ferocious and urgent poems in the language.
Okay, so very nice poem, very well written. And your film, it has some a fast pace, right? It's fast paced. Why did you choose that pace?
Well, it's informed by the process of the adaptation. So I'd reached out to Paula to ask whether she'd provide a recording of the poem that we could sort of overlay as voiceover onto illustrative imagery. And the pace with which she read that text in the recording, and when I had heard her earlier read the poem, then informed the way that we cut it. The vast majority of the credit of the edit and its quality and the pace goes to Nicole Cohenan. She and I would have conversations back and forth, but she mostly led that, and I had suggestions here and there. But my sense is that Nicole felt intuitively kind of the cadence of the reading and the way that it kind of crescendos. And she matched that with her editing. I think that there's also this sense of discombobulation and anxiety in the text. And I think that that's communicated well through those texts, which for the most part, Nicole, or those edits rather, which for the most part, Nicole led.
Yes, that's true. We do feel an anxiety, like by listening to the words and all. And what do you think is the most important thing to know when you start a career in filmmaking? Do you have any advice?
Probably all too much advice, really. I mean, the word when I read these questions that you sent along yesterday that came to mind in response to this question was the word exfoliation. I think that the world kind of coarsens us just by dint of the way that experiences compel us to be kind of self-protective and to build up a bit of callous in the world. And I think that callus doesn't serve the sensitivity that's required of an artist working in any genre, be it film or poetry or sculpture or dance. And so if I had a piece of advice to impart, again, appreciating that I have no business conferring advice whatsoever, and that everyone knows intuitively what they're meant to do, I think exfoliation and that kind of constant process of returning to a state of openness and vulnerability and sensitivity is necessary to serve meaningful and poignant art.
Okay, so not to become a prisoner in art, like for example, just working in big companies and like to follow yourself more. That would be an advice.
I mean, in terms of working for big companies, I'm reluctant to offer much advice in that context because I'm fundamentally repulsed by the idea of an employer-employee dynamic and doing something at the bidding of someone else, rather than expressing yourself for its own sake. But that's an idealistic and maybe naive sensibility. I think integrity is the most important word that comes to mind in the context of working for a big company. And I think humanizing companies by means of seeking out individual practitioners within a company, someone from whom you could learn, is a good way to go. So rather than thinking of working for a company, to find individuals that you can collaborate with and do what you can to ensure that, although you have your voice, that your voice is your creative contributions and your voice are being heard rather than you're being simply like a technician meant to execute someone else's vision. Yeah, I mean, the first thought that came to mind when you used the word career was a statement that I recall of Philip Seymour Hoffman's. And maybe I'll just close my answer in response to that question with this, which was, he had at one point, when asked by someone, well, what are you going to do now? He said, I don't know, I'll probably get a job or work, get a play somewhere in New York. And he was interrupted and said, no, like, don't think of it as a job. Never think of it as a job. So if you can frame it as a kind of vocation in your own mind and ask of yourself what it is that you're called to do, I think that would be a more helpful formulation rather than, looking for a job or establishing a career. Well, listen very closely to your intuition.
Your own voice. Okay. Thank you. Very good advice. And can you give us a hint about your upcoming projects? Can we follow you somewhere?
Yeah. So my film company's website, through which I'll release films that I've directed, produced, and or written is astoriapictures.ca, ASTORIA pictures.ca. It's fully bilingual in French and English, given that it's a Canadian company. My own website is kevinandrewheslop.com, HESLOP.com. I refrain for the most part from social media, although I do have Instagram handles, Astoria Pictures Company and at Kevin Andrew Heslop. Those pages are unpopulated. I'm kind of thinking askance of those mediums at the moment. In terms of forthcoming work with Monica Schneider and Ivan Melikoff and Julia Innes, Kate Kenyon, I shot a new series of comedic shorts that'll be coming out with Astoria Pictures through astoriapictures.ca in April. I've got 4 book manuscripts to submit this month. One on the topic of medical assistance in dying, state-assisted euthanasia in Canada. Another, a series of interviews with artists. One co-written book of poetry, and a new book of poetry that I've written since about May of last year. And then later this year in the fall, I'll adapt a couple of short films, or rather adapt a couple of poems into short films, those poems being derived from my debut poetry collection called The Correct Theory of Your Why is a Mountain, which was released by Gordon Hill Press in 2021. And I'm also working steadily to adapt books which have been published by various Canadian publishers to the screen. And you could find, if you're a producer and you were looking for IP, you can reach out to me at kevin@astoriapictures.ca or find that IP at astoriapictures.ca/IP.
Awesome. Yeah. So you have a lot of projects, very dedicated. That's good to hear.
It's this or bust. Yeah, there's no choice involved.
So I'll write the links under the YouTube interview, so we'll be able to follow you there. So thank you again for being here today, and I wish you a great rest of retreat that we can see behind. So thanks again, and I will keep you updated about the prizes. And I'll send you the interview later today, very soon.